My guest today is a dear friend and a brother of more than a decade. And I don't like to talk about my friendships on the show because I'm here to do a job. But Pastor Bolaji Idowu is one of my favorite people and one of my dearest friends. Now, he's been on the show before, yeah? And I don't like to repeat guests because there's so many people I want to talk to in the world. But over the past 2 years since we did our last interview, so much has happened, so much growth. It feels like he's not the same person. So in our regular conversations, I decided I want to talk to you again. And here he is. On the week of the Next Level Prayer Conference 2025, I'm sitting with Pastor B, as he's fondly called, to talk about the massive growth that has happened in the past 2 years.
And that's what really happened next level.
Yes.
As we begin to pray,
yes,
there's always a heavy presence. It's just bam, hit the whole place.
Yeah. I was at the Next Level Conference in London at his invitation, and I was stunned and inspired. We talk about his childhood, the pain in his childhood that inspired his ministry focused on emotional healing.
I've been a victim of emotional issues.
How so?
There are things, just my background. Right. I was raised without a father. I have no memory of my father hugging me.
Why?
Yes, I have no memory, like literally no memory.
We talk about the multiple stories that come from the conferences and the live prayer sessions, healings from cancer.
Any faith that does not connect and heal people is fake.
Any faith that does not connect and heal people is fake. I talk about, the moniker celebrity pastor. How does he feel about that? I talk about the moniker marriage pastor and those Sunday slides of fine boys and fine girls for Jesus. What is the agenda behind that?
There is a world to reach.
Right.
And unfortunately, the churches that are very good in reaching the world might not be good in discipleship. And churches that are very strong in discipleship might not be good in reaching the world.
And I ask him to address the critics who think that some of these things are carnal-minded.
God in his infinite wisdom made us differently, right, so that we can achieve his purpose and still come together and be one strong body.
He shares a heartbreaking story. And then we talk about the Next Level Conference, which fills stadiums now across the world. How does he feel standing on the pulpit and seeing over 100,000 people gathered for prayer? Pastor Bolaji, like you've never seen, heard, or witnessed him before. There's a lot of places I want to start this interview from, but a lot has happened since then. So I think I should start from here. Last year, I attended the Next Level Conference in London. Yeah. And by accident, I'd met you at the airport. But, it's one thing to hear something from outside. It's another thing to physically be in the place and experience it. First and foremost, the entire stadium, as it were, the entire hall, as it were, was full in the UK.
which is abnormal.
Which is abnormal. And it was full, but it was full of young people as well. Yes. There was older people, but those young people that people said have left the church, don't like prayer.
There was an article that says, what is going on? There was an article about it that says, UK has declining spiritual people, but we came out of the conference and we had a surge of young people.
Yes. So what is going on?
The truth is that either young or old, there's a strong appetite for spiritual things. I don't know if you know this, but there's a rise in search for spiritualism all across the globe. I think what has happened is that the people that currently pioneer or spread the Christian message have not been effective enough to understand the core of it and how to spread it to certain age category.
Right.
So, that puts people off.
Yeah.
There's an emphasis on form than heart.
Yeah.
And heart always comes before form. So there's an emphasis on form. There's an emphasis on rules and regulation.
Yeah.
Why there should be emphasis on devotion, personal spirituality, which changes the whole game.
Yeah.
So, when there's an emphasis on, rules and regulation, and they have their place. But, it's the core. It's the core. And when people also see real result and transformation, it's easy to talk about. Yes. You can relate with your friend that struggle with addictions, that struggle with many, many things. And your friend just come and say, this changed my life. And it's not what you read in the book. It's not what the pastor said. It's like, oh, I really know this changed your life. Like, oh, wow, really? It worked for you. And that's how next level prayers are spread.
Yes.
Because it's always one person telling another person, another person telling another person.
Yeah.
And people having personal testimonies and stories. You know, anywhere I go, you know, some say hi. And when I say hi, that high always has a story behind it. Oh, I joined the prayers, you know, I couldn't have a child. The doctor said my fallopian tube was blocked. You know, I had PCOS for 14 years. You know, I mean, one of the most ridiculous stories. And, you know, I say there is a sense of humility because sometimes when people doubt miracles, we of faith, we tend to think that, how dare you doubt a miracle? But the truth is that because of the nature of miracle does not follow science, it's easy to doubt. And sometimes it doesn't just make sense, you know, because it's not as if you can predict it 100%. I will tell you the story. A lady sent a testimony and she's 36 years old as at the time of the testimony. And she had never menstruated before. Never menstruated before. And she said she joined the prayer because someone sent her the link. And she was in a tradomedicine. And, you know, I said the reason why is that, he said when she was young, she followed her mother everywhere to get her menstruation fixed, and it never came. He said, now that I'm older, I'm going everywhere to get it fixed, and it's still not working. He said, so when medical science did not work, I went to traditional medicine. He said, I was waiting for the traditional medicine doctor, and I just said, okay, let me just listen to NLP. He said, listen to NLP. He said, and I began to flow. For the first time in 36 years.
Wow.
You know, so even for me sometimes, you know, when people share those testimonies, I have to say, like, please get me a medical report. Let me get a friend that can testify. Because as much as I want to believe it, sometimes people want cheap attention, but you also want to authenticate the stories. Yeah. Because it's actually beyond imagination, but it also points to the fact that God is real and God is kind. Because most people that God touch are not the regular people a pastor would think God should touch. If a pastor was meant to give out the miracles. But God in his kindness, in his wisdom, out of compassion, wanting to show who he is, touches people just as he wills.
Yeah. Because when people share testimonies and miracles these days, like you've hinted, there are a lot of doubters.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cynicism. And you, as a person, are a very practical person. Do you appreciate where that cynicism comes from? And how do you answer it?
I wish that I could deny their perspective, but it's just very difficult.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for you to say, you know, and some things, you know, you have to just show proofs. And that's why sometimes you show the videos, we ask for medical reports to just repost the story. Because the thing is that the nature of, we've been taught by science, 1 + 1 = 2. Yeah. 2 + 2 = 4. Yeah. So if someone says, in my case, 2 + 2 = 0, it's just difficult to believe. And, you know, that's something, I appreciate the fact that they feel that way. But what I always ask is that just open up a window. Truly, you can see in case things are not like this. For example, your environment determines what you believe and how you behave. For example, if we all were in space right now, floating would be normal. If we all were in space right now, floating would be normal. The reason why floating is not normal is because we're on this side of the earth. You know, on this side of earth. So the reason why it's so abnormal to us is because it is supernatural. So it's meant to be beyond logic. It's meant to be beyond thinking. And, you know, that's what it's meant to be.
How do you manage? Because, you know, I've seen people, when people see you, when they meet you, when they come across you, you know, they almost want to faint. How does that not get into your head?
Good question. I think it's all perspective. Once you see yourself as a vessel, it can't get into your head. What you feel is a deep sense of gratitude. That, Lord, despite my imperfections, you can find me worthy to use me in this manner. Because the thing is that what God does through you, it does not mean, you know, people confuse ownership with stewardship. People confuse ownership with stewardship. He does it through you does not mean you are the owner that can dispense at your own will. It's like a driver that is posting with his August car. He's just a foolish guy. Because the truth is that the car is not his own and he's just a driver. So that's exactly how I see myself. And because the driver does not see himself as a steward, I think the reason why that will happen to anyone where they will feel bigger than life, and those things unfortunately happen. It's because they don't understand they are stewards. They think they are owners. And the truth is that the best of us is a steward of God's grace.
So it's to remember that constantly.
Yeah, it's that consciousness.
Yeah.
I'm a steward.
And something you said, is that the answer to the question? So people look at miracles and say, so why don't there are some people who have come to church and prayed and prayed and prayed and have gotten a miracle? I mean, there are two questions, but I want to answer the first one. The second part of it, there are people who have gotten their miracles, and then after some time, it seems like it reverts, or it reverts.
Yeah.
So the first question, and something that came from your answer, what about those who pray and do all of those things and don't get a miracle? Is that linked to the fact that the pastor is only a steward? So the pastor is not essentially dispensing miracles, but it's also a steward. What's happening there?
You know, that's a tough place to be, because some of the people I've seen that have been really crushed in their faith are people that have believed for certain things to happen, and it never happened. You know, and this is what I say. And unfortunately, the church always makes it feel as if there's something wrong with them.
Yes.
And while I agree that sometimes you don't understand the full concept of faith and the principles of getting a miracle, which could be true, the truth is that there are cases where we just don't understand. And I'll give an example. There's a standard procedure for treating malaria, but there are people that use malaria drugs and still die. And the doctors will call it isolated cases. So there are isolated cases where you will do everything. I don't know why it doesn't go. But the way I process that is, and this is what is comforting. You know, I think of Peter. He was delivered from death. An angel came personally to rescue him. But again, Peter was arrested at some point in his life, and they killed him.
Yeah.
But the thing is that if you were there when they were killing Peter, the final time, he will not tell you that God does not deliver. He will look at you in the face and say, maybe I'm going to die tomorrow. But what I want to live with is that our God is a deliverer. Our God is a healer. What does that tell me? I may not be able to explain the daily operations, the things that are happening, but it will not change who God is, that He's a healer, He's a miracle worker. I may not be able to explain everything. There may be isolated cases. I may not be able to explain it, but it's not change the fact that of who God is.
You know, it's interesting that for many people who have known you, over the past few years as the ministry has exploded, what they've known you for, or what they've known the ministry for, are these miracles. Because like I said to you the first time I interviewed you, when I started hearing, not even started hearing, because I've known you for a long time, when people around me started talking about you, for many of them, it was that what they used to say is that Pastor Bolaji is real. Pastor Bolaji is real. And I remember asking you that when we first met, because underlying all these testimonies I hear, for me, most striking are the stories of emotional healing. People who think that they came into the church broken, they came into the church disbelieving, they had even left the faith sometimes, and somehow their hearts were healed. And I remember asking you then that this seems to be the thing that you are most passionate about. Am I correct?
I mean, I would think of myself as Joseph, the guy with the coat of many colors. so as much as I want to be passionate about that would not be the only thing, but it's one of the things I'm passionate about. And the reason why is that any faith that does not connect and heal people is fake.
Any faith that does not connect and heal people is fake.
Because if you are a true shepherd, you carry the burden for the people that you lead.
Right.
And that burden is big. And the thing is that when people are emotionally dysfunctional, there's no area of their life that's not going to show up in.
Right.
It will show up in their relationships, it will show up in their marriages. Some people think they have relationship problems. No, they have emotional issues. It's the emotional issues that keep showing up in their relationship. I know people that can't keep just more than 6 months. And they'll keep saying, it's my boss, it's the environment.
Yeah.
But what they don't see is that it's the emotional issue that shows up at the job.
Right.
You know, so emotional issue shows up in sexuality. I mean, I came across a guy in our church that is really changed, and the guy told me, saying, in the last 3 or 4 years, I've slept with over 200 girls. Without thinking too much, that guy has an emotional issue, and sex is just an outlet for what he's going through. You know, and the truth is that as much as the church wants to feature spiritual things, human beings are both spiritual and they also have emotions, and emotions are very, very, very real. And a lot of people, just because of our culture, it's almost as if they're dying in silence. You know, Psalm 23 says something powerful about emotions. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Psalm 23 says, it restores my soul. That's what he says. He says, do you know, it says he restores it. That means that there's a depletion that goes on.
Yeah.
Through human interaction and experiences.
Yeah.
And it says, it restores my soul. I mean, I have someone close to me, and this is a very, 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 I mean, just thinking about it, and because of the relationship we have, it's a very tough story. I've known this girl almost all my life. I've known the guy almost all my life, and they got married. And a year or two into their marriage, I had a divorce. And I was, because we were close to me, I was trying to salvage the divorce.
Yeah.
I did everything. And one day I sat down with a guy and I said, there's something you guys are not telling me. And the guy said, today I will tell you what it is. He said, since the age of 9, my wife's father had been sleeping with her. He said, twice I took her pregnancy from my wife that her father gave to her. He said, her father got her pregnant twice. He said, my wife felt she had no option, because if she doesn't sleep with the father will go to the sisters.
Whoa.
He said, so she was the scapegoat for the whole of the sisters. And he said to me, how do you think someone like that can be normal and function in a marriage, having had that kind of experience? And the truth is that if you see her, you would never know this kind of things happen.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when people's spirits are healed or recreated in Christ, the soul needs restoration, repair, replenishment. But the way the traditional Christian ways, just silence it. You silence it, but it comes out in something. Then it comes out in something. It comes out in something. And I think that the church needs to pay a lot of attention to emotional issues. I've been a victim of emotional issues.
How so?
There are things. I mean, just my background. I mean, right. I was raised without a father. I have no memory of my father hugging me.
Why?
Yes, I have no memory, like literally no memory.
No memory of your father hugging
I have literally no memory of my father hugging me. You know, I came from a polygamous background, and it was so bad because of just the arrangement it was in the family. If my father is in a place and I'm with him, if my stepmom comes into that same place, I have to go. That she cannot set her eyes on me. I have to go. So just imagine how a 5-year-old child interprets that.
Yes.
The thing about being a child is that you cannot interpret the complexities of what goes on in life.
Yes.
You just know how you feel.
Yes.
So, you know, I'll give you a good example. I remember I was just about maybe 8 or 9. I'd gone to see my uncle, you know, and they stayed in this lovely, lovely house, you know, 3 floors house and all of those kind of things. And my father pulled a surprise visit. And I'd not seen my father before that time for about 3 or 4 months. My father pulled a surprise visit with my stepmom. But, you know, the way the house was, the office was on the ground floor, there was a middle floor and a top floor. So my uncle just sent word to me and said that your dad is here with your stepmom. Get going now. I couldn't even have the opportunity to see my dad. And you know, the arrangement we had was that, you know, I was dropped off, the driver would come and pick me, and all those kind of things. I couldn't go for the driver. I remember that I walked 2 hours home that day because I didn't know how to use the bus system, and I cried because I just felt as if rejected. I just felt as if I wasn't good enough. Then, you know what? I don't know if you know this. In a family or in a parenting relationship, the father is the one that gives the self-confidence.
Right.
The mother is the one that gives the love. That's why girls very close to their fathers are always very bold. Very, very bold. But guess what? That's why girls that don't grow up with a father always want to date older men. Because they end up looking for the father they don't have. They're looking for validation. They're looking for us to stay with them. You know, and that's why people that grow up without a mother always are very mean. They go, and the people that now have single parents is the most confusing.
Right.
Because in the mother and the father that is a single parent, most of the time the mother becomes the man.
Right.
So there's tough love. It's just a lot of balance. It's just a lot of not balance, disequilibrium that's going on there. Because the mother is trying to be hard, is trying to be soft, is trying to be this. Then at some point she just gives up and chooses a pathway. So you have people living with the mother, but they're living with the man. Because the predominant feature of the woman is the man. For the failure that the child will not go haywire. Yeah. So they do that. So most of the time, those child becomes very, very productive, but emotionally they are horrible. Because they've never experienced the love and the comfort. And so you see children raised in a family, they're emotionally deaf and dumb. Yeah, they're adults in their 40s, 35, and it's so overwhelming when you hear the stories. Because what is wrong with you? And they cannot express what is wrong with them, or else they get to a tipping point and they break down. The reason why is that they're emotionally deaf and dumb. They've never been taught how to get in touch with their emotions. Feel. A lot of people cannot feel. Because for the men it's horrible, because number one, men are taught when they are young to deny their feelings. Yeah. And to say, as a young boy, it's wrong for you to feel. So you'll be like, why are you crying? You're a man, suck it up. And what you're saying that you're denying them of feeling. And you have a lot of people that they feel bad for expressing their feelings. Because they can easily be gaslighted because they've not been taught how to honor their feelings and honor the feelings of other people. So you have a lot of people that are emotionally deaf and dumb. And you see it happen in marriages, you see it happen in businesses, you see it happen in offices, and they're just wrecks emotionally. They could be successful in different areas, but they will carefully guard their emotions and don't let people have in that space.
So would you say that experience of your childhood triggered a sensitivity towards emotional issues?
Sure, I would say that because I struggled with my self-esteem. I struggled with. There's just a lot of stories. I never felt I was enough. I never felt I was enough. I struggled with my self-esteem. I had over-attachment syndrome. Over-attachment is a condition where you have tasted love, but it was taken from you. And because you want to have it again, you overextend yourself to people. And they, in turn, abuse you because they can see that you overextend yourself to them. So there's anxiety attachment and all of those kind of things going on. So that kind of made me a bit sensitive, because what happened is that when you grow up, so my father was not there, so my mother had to be the father. And I had to create all these imaginations in my head of who my family was, which are not really my family, but I had to survive. Because what happens in emotional issues is that you have to tell yourself a story that makes you emotionally safe. You have to tell yourself a story that makes you emotionally safe.
Yes. So, and people often have to do that. And that's why these people can look like they are functioning, like this couple we were talking about, but inside they are shattered. The people who say that, two things. One, let me talk from the outside of the church. Let me talk from inside of the church. There are people in the church who think, no, the church should not be dealing with the emotional. The church should be dealing with the spiritual. And we come into the emotional, we are deviating from the message of Jesus Christ, or the message of God, all of those things, and that they are therapists for emotions. The church is about the spiritual. How do you answer that?
It's like saying that a doctor should not do the emotional issues. It's so difficult. You had a good doctor is a good psychologist.
Right.
Because when you sit you down, he begins to have conversations with you. Is really walking through emotions. I understand what they're saying, but if you notice, Jesus, he says the Spirit of God is upon me to bind up the brokenhearted. So what do you mean by, if the Spirit of God is upon me to bind up the brokenhearted, what am I meant to do today? There are people that are brokenhearted that I need to bind up by ministry. Some people deal with pain through medications. So what's medication? They look for a vice that can distract them temporarily from medication.
Pain.
So cocaine comes in.
Yeah.
Heroin comes in.
Yeah.
Sex comes in. Drinking comes in. The reason why is that every time I feel depressed, I've trained myself, this is my go-to to get away from this feeling. And what you're doing is that you're medicating your pain.
Yeah.
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 You're medicating. What the third category? So some deal with pain by meditation, medication, and some motivation. Some allow their pain to motivate them.
Right.
That's why you see the richest man in Africa.
Right.
The pain of the poverty they experience as a child becomes what motivates them to get successful.
Right.
The unfortunate thing is that it's a cycle. The pain will always be there.
So none of these things are solutions.
They are no solution.
Yeah.
What they are literally trying to do is to use external physiology and surroundings to change what is within them, which will not change anything. You know, a girl that's been raped multiple times, just praying for her might not help her.
Right.
She needs, because the rape took place in such a way that affected her soul, she needs rewiring. And you know, the mind is like a program. You know, if you put a bad program there, the body will respond to it. But you can over time take out that bad program and also put in what? A good program.
Yeah. But people struggle with that because, you know, we grew up hearing that prayer is the master key. Jesus started with prayer and ended with prayer. And somebody who is steeped in that culture will say, why can prayer not rewire a person if it's such a master key?
Very, very powerful questions. It's just like saying that, why can't prayer fly a plane? Why can't prayer fly a plane?
Right.
The reason why is that
Right.
everything God made is made by principles.
Right.
He told us in Romans chapter 12 verse 2, he said, renew your mind. He said, be transformed by renewing your mind. He didn't say be transformed by praying. There's what prayer does. There's what renewing the mind does.
Yeah.
And they work hand in hand.
Right.
So the major thing is that prayer is not an all-purpose drug. Prayer is not an all-purpose drug. That whatever it is, pray. No, prayer is not an all-purpose. Prayer is very potent, it's powerful, but there's what prayer will do, and there's what prayer will work with. So most of us need to know that this thing I'm doing works with prayer.
Yeah.
No, works independent of prayer.
Right. Speaking of emotional healing, though, some people are going to call you the marriage pastor or this. How do you react to that? Before we talk about, I want to talk about those Sunday pictures. Well, before we talk about those Sunday pictures, some people see you as the marriage pastor, the singles pastor as the marriage pastor. So the marriage pastor part, how do you respond to that? What do you think about that?
You know, Chude, sometimes it's difficult to even tell you how these things evolve. It's difficult to say, but the truth is that I don't know if you've ever listened to the frustration of a girl in her 40s that is serving God. She's a virgin and is hoping to get married, and no man is coming her way.
Right.
If you really have a heart for people, you will pay attention to their needs. I'm telling you will pay attention to their needs. You know, one of the biggest blessings in recent times is someone that, you know, is close to the family but also in the ministry, and she's 45 and she got married. You know, and you know, I could, you know, every time she came before that time, Chude, it's difficult for people to stay single and sane.
It is?
It's difficult for people to stay single and sane. First of all, the first thing is that they lose their self-esteem.
Right.
They just think that there's something wrong with me, that the reason why I'm not in a relationship, that there's something wrong with me.
Right.
And they become a shadow of themselves. The passion is that, number one, to really help people get connected. That's the first thing. And number two, there are narratives about church people, church boys and church girls.
Right.
Sometimes girls feel as if, oh, the hottest boys are not in church. Meanwhile, sometimes the coolest boys are Jesus boys. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes the guys feel as if the hottest girls are not in church. Sometimes the loveliest, and it's a volume of, you know, church girls are dullards, you know, and the real girls are somewhere else. But it's right there. So I think as someone that is passionate with helping people, you know, you need to find an opportunity. You need to always look for that gap when you can bring them together. You know, where you can bring them together. And the truth is that I know good men and good women that can be potential husbands and wives. And it's just a little platform they need for someone to identify them. So if taking pictures of them on Sunday will help that platform, hey, what's my platform there for? I will help. If I can do something extra, Chude, I will. Maybe I should start a podcast where I interview people talking about themselves and I say, hey, Chantel is up for marriage. Shaniqua is up for marriage. And people can say, because the thing is that marriage works with exposure.
Marriage works with exposure.
Yeah, getting married works with exposure. I'll give an example.
Okay.
The girls that are most sought after are big on some media platform.
Right.
The reason why is that the more people you're exposed to,
Yeah.
the more people look for you. They don't look for them because they're the prettiest, the kindest, or the best character. They're just the most exposed.
So some people say that. Some people say that. But a church girl is not supposed to be exposed.
What am I meant judgment? I don't know what exposed means. Exposed does not mean you expose your body.
I know what you mean, but you should not be out there.
You know, then I want to ask you, is there an angel that will marry you? If nobody knows you, who is going to marry you?
Right.
So because think about it, attraction is based on exposure. Think about the biggest people that have attractions or followership online. From, I think there's a lady, Victoria Peppel, all those people on social media, you know, they have a lot of people that attracted them.
Yeah.
You know, some of them are great people. I'm not saying nobody's a great person, but the reason why they have that is the principle of exposure. Why do you think all the actresses have a lot of people running after them? Exposure.
Yeah.
So I think that Christian people, maybe one of the things with church girls is this. Because they are so great in character, they think they will just come and look for them. Excuse me, ma. You're positioned for what you want. Ruth positioned. Right. Rebecca positioned.
Right.
You're positioned with it. Because sometimes I think, one of the things I think about church girls is that there's a feeling of entitlement when it comes to getting married.
God owes me a husband.
Yes, God owes, because I'm a virgin. You know, I'm a virgin. Because I'm a virgin, God owes me something. And I understand where that is coming from. But in addition to that, can you position yourself? And the thing is that either we admit or not, there's a prime place of a lady. And in that prime place, they need to do what is best for them to, you know, enter into a relationship.
I had a